The Shaivist yogis were much more practical. They would say this is a delusion. We are an apparition. We are an appearance, what's called an abhasa in Sanskrit. So we kind of are here ghost-like, but we're not really. So they were like 1 foot in each. You know, they couldn't quite go with this isn't happening at all, Vedanta. They couldn't go with the real Brahmanic version of, no, you have an Atman, it's the size of your thumb, it's in your heart, and it never gets destroyed, and that's your ultimate essence, and it's always, you know, one with everything in a certain sense. They couldn't go there either. Because their experience, the yogins came out of shamanism, their experience was that there's an indivisibility between these three bodies. And all we could come back to is, and everybody could agree on in Shaivist yoga and so on, in which then became Tibetan Buddhist Tantra and the Daoji as well. Everyone, these three schools and Dzogchen could agree that there is something happening as the basic tenet. We're not crazy. Well, we might be a little crazy, but there's something happening, right? And then how clearly we can experience what's happening dictates how realized or how enlightened we are, okay? And the next logical tenet they went to was that, okay, we're experiencing something, but what is it that's going on? And what is it that's doing this experiencing? Okay. And there's some ultimate division in the religious level of Taoism and Shaivism and Dzogchen and Vajrayana. But again, the Mahasiddhas, the adepts, went past that and found the same truth at the very end, stages 10, 11, 12. But what they can agree on is that, and the Shaivist, I think, said it the most beautifully with this word in Sanskrit, Ksetrajña. They said, what is our self? It's a Ksetrajña. It's Atma Shakti, sure, it's self-power. That's described by the 10 forces. But that self-power, Atma Shakti, is a term that's only used specifically when we're teaching the sub-cycle of teachings of the greater system of Mahasiddha Yoga called Atma Shakti, describing just the individual's experience, perspective, right? Here, when we say Ksetrajña, this is a term that describes this Atma Shakti, this individual that we are, but does it in such a way that it doesn't nail it down to anything specific and says it's an experience of awareness. Kshetra means an area or a field, right? And Jna implies knowing, a knower. It implies a knower, pure awareness without an object. So a Ksetrajña, as a Shaivist yogin would describe themselves, is not a soul, not a body, not a mind, but a field where awareness is most likely to arise. In this way, it's very similar if you ever learned quantum mechanics in chemistry, you know, and you learned that kind of chemistry has a p orbital, right? Q, R, S, T, all these different orbitals, meaning a shape. They show you a shape and they say, within this atom or molecule, the electron is going to show up somewhere as an average in this shape, like a balloon or a circle or a line or whatever. And that's called an orbital, right? So they're not saying where it's going to be exactly, because you can't. You can't actually. And that's the same as us. Everybody listening to this right now, you are a Ksetrajña. You are a field where awareness just spontaneously arises, actually. It's not due to your own effort. And that's really kind of interesting. So this field isn't solid. It can morph. It can be dulled. It can be clarified, right? It can be brighter or duller, darker. And this experience of the self, of this Ksetrajña, is what we're looking at specifically in the 10 dynamic forces of self-power teaching. There's a larger teaching, the Atma Shakti teaching itself, the self-power teaching, which goes into great detail about how we got here, what is our fate in the world, and so forth. How do we find our fate and all that? That will be happening at other times during the year when you see the Atma Shakti teachings. This cycle, sub-cycle of teachings, the 10 dynamic forces of self-power, is a way to look at what are actually what is the composition of this Ksetrajña? What are we animated by? Okay, if we're just a field of awareness where it arises, it's obviously not static or passive in totality. There's obviously some movement, some activity, some manifesting, some loss. Everything's going on, change. What is that change? Well, there are 10 processes. And these 10 processes make up the 10 dynamic forces of ourself.